Hey guys, I just arrived here in Los Angeles International Airport, or LAX, on this Alaska Air 737-900. Today I'll be flying Air New Zealand for the first time. Thank you for joining me on board flight NZ5 LAX to Auckland. Most international flights out of LAX, including mine, arrive and depart from the Tom Bradley International Terminal. Alaska Air uses Terminal 6 in LAX, but luckily there is a direct airside walkway that goes through Terminals 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, all the way to the Tom Bradley Terminal. It was a long walk to get there, as I needed to pass Terminals 4 and 5. But once I got to the skywalk, it became clear that I was about to enter the enormous Tom Bradley Terminal. I was also able to spot some of the aircraft at Terminal 4. The American Airlines terminal, including this 777-300. If you remember it, I do have a trip report on one of these, Heathrow to Dallas. This is not the one I was on though, this is November 719 Alpha November, I was on 730. And as you've probably read in the title, the aircraft I'm taking to New Zealand today will also be a 777-300ER. Welcome to the Tom Bradley International Terminal. This is my first time seeing it, and it's an insane terminal. Definitely the most impressive architecture I've seen in the United States airport. Well, I guess there's Seattle's Central Terminal, which is also a breathtaking one, and the Indianapolis check-in area, but other than that, it's not often that I see such a spacious airport interior in the United States, as in spacious to this extent, with such amazing architecture. I think I should mention that I have about 8 hours here, and now you're probably wondering, who in the right mind would spend 8 hours at an airport? Well, first of all, I probably would. But second of all, I did not choose this flight, nor did I choose any of the ones on this trip. All the flights that will be uploaded to my channel operated by Air New Zealand, Qantas, and Alaska Airlines, all of those upcoming ones, including this one, I took these flights with a huge group. And I guess the best option for that was this itinerary with a 9-hour layover in LAX. I assume that if they were going to give us an itinerary like this, the later flights, or the later options from Seattle to LAX must have been full, or at least too full for our group. So yeah, now here I am, the longest layover I've ever done at an airport. It wasn't so bad though. I went and got lunch in Tom Bradley's new concourse. I didn't film anything inside it, but I spent some time watching out this window, which gave me the perfect view of the main Tom Bradley concourse. And yeah, like at O'Hare's Terminal 5, we get a ton of heavies coming in from all over the world. We got Qatar Airways, SAS, Lot Polish, even 2 A380s and a 747-8 all in one spot, operated by Emirates, Qantas, and Lufthansa respectively. Because our final destination for this leg of the journey was Sydney, I don't know why they didn't just put us on one of the many non-stop flights to Sydney out of here. I mean, just one of the flights to Sydney is operated by an A380. Was even that plane too full? Is the route this popular? I'm not even complaining. Going through Auckland just means more planes for me to fly on. I just find it kind of interesting that we have to do that, even though there are so many more options directly to Sydney out of here. After spending some time in that concourse, I headed back to the main one. And in case you were wondering, this is the underground hallway you walk through to get between the two concourses. Eventually, it was revealed to us that our gate would be 134 at the north end of the main Tom Bradley concourse. When I got there, it was occupied by a Level Airlines A330-200 that was going to fly to Barcelona. I actually was in Barcelona a few months before this, and unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to see my Air New Zealand 777 until this Level flight would leave the gate. And it looks like our departure time will be in between 2 American Airlines flights. We got one to London half an hour before, then half an hour after our departure it's the American flight to Sydney. Funny thing is that before our group ticket was revealed, I initially expected us to be put on that flight, but I'm grateful they didn't, because having flown the American 777 once, I do not need to be on board one of those for 15 hours. While I waited for the Level flight to go, I walked all over the concourse to do some plane spotting. I saw yet another A330-200, this one of Qantas, coming in from Brisbane. Beside that one, there was a Swiss 777-300 headed for Zurich. A few months ago, I did a trip report on one of these, on the route from San Francisco. Across from my gate, there's a Singapore Airlines A350 headed over to, yeah, I think you all know. There was a LATAM 7878 Dreamliner headed for Lima. I never caught the tail number of this Delta A330-900neo, so I don't know where it's going. Parked at the second concourse, we got the Aer Lingus A330-300 headed for Dublin, Volaris A321, I think that one was going to Guadalajara, but I never caught its tail. To the left of that one there was the Condor A330-900neo tan colors. This one will be going to Frankfurt. I think it's interesting what Condor did with this new livery, but I don't care what anyone says, nothing will beat the Thomas Cook colors. I also saw a Delta 757-200 that came in from Mexico City, and I also have a trip report on one of these. Behind that one there is a Delta 767-300 at the Delta terminal. I believe that's one of the domestic wide-body flights. Lufthansa A340-300 taking off for Frankfurt. This was about the time the Level A330-200 left the gate for its journey to Barcelona. I didn't know this at the time, but the Delta A330neo in this clip was being towed to a remote stand for the night. I also spotted the All Nippon Airways Future Promise Livery 7879 Dreamliner being towed to a remote stand after coming in from Tokyo Haneda. Then there was a JetBlue A321 that came in from Liberia, and finally Hawaiian Airlines A330-200, sadly never caught the tail of that one. And just as that Hawaiian A330 started pushing back, the Air New Zealand 777 that would take me to Auckland made its way to my gate. You may be thinking that the plane just landed here, but no. As I said before, my layover here in LAX would be about 9 hours, and believe it or not, my plane has been here in LAX the whole time. This 777 literally landed here from Auckland as Flight 6 20 minutes before I arrived on my Alaska flight, and I had seen it parked here when I was taxiing to the gate. This 9-hour layover was basically this plane's turnaround time, and because the turnaround time between Flight 6 and 5 is so long, the aircraft was towed to a remote stand and remained there for most of my time here. But now that the level flight is gone, our gate is open for the plane, so right now it is being towed back from the remote stand to gate 134 without a single passenger on board. But yeah, our aircraft for today is Zulu Kilo Oscar Kilo Mike, a 13-year-old Boeing 777-300ER with General Electric G90 engines. There's some interesting things about this particular jet. For one, it's the second oldest 333 in the Air New Zealand fleet. It normally would be the oldest, but not too long ago the airline got a wet lease 333 from Cathay that's older than this one. That one is easily recognizable by its almost all-white livery. Second, this was the last Air New Zealand 777 to return to service after the pandemic groundings. So about this flight, it will be about 12 hours long, making it the longest flight I've taken in my life. LX41, you had a good 2-month-long run with that title, but I'm sorry to say it, you're about to be dethroned. It'll also be my first trans-Pacific flight, so I'm very excited. Air New Zealand doesn't really board by group numbers. Obviously, they will start with the priority groups like upper classes, but once it gets to economy, it's by row number, from what I remember, starting with the back. And boarding took forever. I don't think that's a problem with this airline, as the other 4 flights I took with them had a quick boarding process, just this flight did. I was standing in line for at least 20 to 30 minutes. The line went all the way back here, by the way. I managed to spot a Delta Airbus A350 at Terminal 3 Delta Terminal, probably another wide-body domestic. Eventually the line started moving, so I could finally get on board. I'm in seat 58E today, not a window. Unfortunately, on a lot of the flights I took to the South Pacific, I did not get a window seat, so I apologize if some of the upcoming videos aren't quite as good as what I usually post. That's just how some of them will be. Not the Southwest ones, those ones were all fine, just some of the Air New Zealands, one of the 2 Alaskas, and the 1 Qantas. Because I was so tired and ready to sleep, I decided to get the in-flight entertainment tour over with while we were still on the ground. The screens are very responsive and easy to navigate. Plus, there is a ton of content on here, just as I expected from an airline that's as respected as Air New Zealand. Then there is the flight map with all the flight information in a drop-down bar. It's interactive, and it has a time zone mode. But one thing that makes Air New Zealand stand out is that they have free Wi-Fi. It was slow on this flight, but on the return leg it worked perfectly. More on that once I upload that video. Legroom is great, I will never have a problem with this much space. The seats, while narrow as expected with the 343 configuration on the 777, they have a lot of recline. Having flown on United's 777s back when they had the 333 configuration in economy, I've always been annoyed at the 343 on the 777 that we keep seeing nowadays. But with the good legroom and the incredible recline, it didn't bother me that much this time. As expected, there was a pillow and a decent quality blanket at every economy seat. Seat pocket contents are the most basic you can get. We got the safety card and the purple air sickness bag, I guess. As there should be, there are complimentary earbuds for the in-flight entertainment screens. The first round of service consisted of this lime water. Soon enough, dinner service began. There were two options for the main, beef and chicken. I chose the chicken. It came with a warm roll, crackers, cheese butter, some sort of salad, and a cheesecake. Cutlery was made out of wood. For a drink, I chose apple juice. While the main course didn't look very appealing, it tasted good. Plus, the bread roll was very warm and soft. Overall, the meal wasn't as good as what I had on Lufthansa earlier this year, but still, it was nowhere near the worst I've had. This flight had a 10:40 p.m. departure, so words cannot describe how tired I was. I was out of it. As soon as the cabin crew picked up our trays, I went right to sleep. I slept for about 8 hours, longest I've ever slept on a flight. By the time I woke up, we were already 2.5 hours away from Auckland. For breakfast, there were two options, omelette and French toast. I chose the French toast, which came with yogurt, vanilla syrup, and fruit. This is the first full hot breakfast meal I have had on a plane, and it tasted great. Definitely the best breakfast I have had on a plane. The last round of service consisted of these hard candies, Air New Zealand's Swiss chocolate, you could say. As I stated earlier, Auckland is not my final destination for this leg of the journey. Sydney is. Thing is though, I only have 15 minutes in Auckland before boarding begins for my connecting flight. It'll be on an A320neo and I would rather not miss that, so I will be rushing through. Luckily, because it's an international to international, I do not need to go through passport control. One interesting thing about Air New Zealand's 777s and their other wide bodies is that they will often be used on medium-haul flights, including Auckland to Sydney. Would have been funny if this exact aircraft was used for my connecting flight as well, but I'm on A320neo, so that will not happen today. I also want to mention how we are crossing the international date line. I talked about this a bit in my community tab, but I crossed the date line a total of 4 times on this trip, this being the first. I took off from LA at night on June 12th, close to midnight of the 13th, but because we crossed the date line, we arrive in Auckland on the morning of June 14th. So June 13th, 2024 barely even existed for me. Crazy to think about. As soon as we touched down, I took some time to comprehend how far away I was from anywhere I had been in the past. I had never been anywhere near the South Pacific before this landing. But yeah, welcome to New Zealand. I'll be back here after a few days in Sydney, so this isn't the only time I'll be flying through this airport. What a wonderful flight with Air New Zealand. As much as I dislike the 343 economy on the 777, I'll give credit where credit is due. This was the most comfortable 343 configured 777 I've been on. Given that Air New Zealand is a very well-respected airline, I kind of expected more drink service and maybe a pre-meal snack, but that's all I have to criticize. We had a decent dinner with a fantastic breakfast, smooth IFE, and the icing on the cake is the free Wi-Fi. Final score for my first of 5 Air New Zealand flights is 8.5 out of 10. Awesome flight, awesome airline, would definitely recommend to anyone. I am happy to say that I made it to my A320neo flight to Sydney, caught it during the middle of boarding. This will be a future video. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this trip report. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel, I'd appreciate that. Have a good day.